So today I want to talk about an issue that's, as a social studies teacher, is really important to me and near and dear to my heart, and that is, how is our government supposed to function? And our government has been doing a lot of non-functioning lately, and a lot of dysfunctioning lately. I had a student ask me today, how is it that a few senators were able to shut down our entire government? And I had to really think about how to answer this student. Because in public school, they don't really, in any school really, they don't want us to bring politics to the forefront when we're talking to students. They want us to leave politics out of it. But in this case, and in many cases, politics is really important to why this issue happened. And it's not so much bashing one party and promoting another as it's a midterm election year and people will do anything, just about anything, to get reelected. And that's one of the biggest issues that I'm going to bring up today, and that is term limits. But before we get to term limits, we need to address what the problem is with our government. And that is that so many people are so concerned with the presidency that we've allowed the Senate to basically run around unchecked and unchallenged, doing whatever it is they want without much regard for how it is going to affect any of the citizens that they are supposed to be representing. We've spent the last 2 years basically focused on who's more corrupt, Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton. That we've kind of just swept the corruption in the Senate under the rug and not really spent a whole lot of time talking about it or noticing it or really caring about it. One of the biggest problems, aside from term limits, is the fact that most people don't really care who their senators are. If you were to walk up to any random group of people in any state and ask them to name both of the senators from their state, probably the majority of them wouldn't be able to tell you. In fact, probably the majority of you don't know who your senators are either. You might be able to name one, and if you can name both, that's awesome, and that's really good. But most people can't or don't care. They vote based on party lines. I'm a Democrat, I'm a Republican, I'm going to look for the little D or the little R next to someone's name, and I'm going to vote for them because they represent me. But the problem is that these people have stopped representing us, and they've started only representing themselves. And they have forgotten that our government is set up by the people and for the people. Not for the senators, not for the representatives, not for the president, not for politicians, not for the elite, not for the, one specific group of citizens, the lower class, the middle class specifically, but for all of us as the people. And we, the people, are allowing this to happen because we don't care. We think that the executive branch of the government has all the power, and that's not true. The president has very little real power in the government as one person, but the Senate collectively has quite a bit. And now we do have a checks and balances system that eliminates one branch from becoming too powerful. However, there is strength in numbers, and there are a lot more senators than there are presidents in this country. Well, I'm going to go ahead and pick on Chuck Schumer, since he's the one that kind of orchestrated this whole shutdown and got this off the ground. Now, I don't know if he's up for re-election this year. I know it is a midterm year, and there are a lot of senators who are. But since I'm not from New York, I have very little real interest in whether or not he specifically is up for re-election, because I don't get to vote for him, and he is not a representative from my state. So if he is up for re-election, it would explain a lot about why he did what he did. The goal of every senator is not to do what they can for the people. It's to do what they can to get reelected. And that is because we do not have term limits. So these senators can continue to be reelected over and over and over again until they either die or people vote them out. And that has become a really big problem. People in New York, where Chuck Schumer is from, are not going to look at what he did and say, you know what, this guy really doesn't represent me. I don't think the government should have shut down. They're going to go to vote, and they're going to see Chuck Schumer there. Oh, I know that name. I'm going to vote for him. I've heard that name before. And that's really what these senators are trying to do. Not just him. I'm picking on him, but he's definitely by far not the only one. It's their goal to get their name out there so that people will recognize them on the ballot and vote for them again. There was a vote today in the Senate to reopen, I guess, the government. 18 senators voted to keep the government shut down. 18. They voted to not have our government functioning because of a political issue, which in this case happens to be Dreamers, but, pick a day, pick another issue. Those 18 senators, most of them, if not all of them, will be reelected. And the reason for that is because people don't care. We look the other way, or we don't look at all. We vote for people, and these people are going off and voting on Capitol Hill, and they're voting on issues, and we don't know how they vote. We don't care how they vote. And so these 18 people who voted to keep our government shut down are going to be back at it again. And that's really why we need things like term limits. But it's also important to remind everyone, but especially this student, which is what I told this student, our government is set up by the people and for the people. And while we may think that the president and the senators have a lot of power because we put them in a place where they get to do all of the action, that the real power lies with us. And it's kind of getting to the point where we need to collectively put our American foot down and tell Congress that, hey, y'all work for us. And you don't get to just do whatever you want and expect us to look the other way anymore. It's time for you to do the job that you were hired to do, which is to represent the people. And so I told this student, one person doesn't really have the power to shut down the government. But unfortunately, in our society, we've given people that power. And the only way that we are going to change anything is to remind them with votes that the Constitution that they swore to defend and uphold, the first line of that starts with, "We the people." And that's really the most important thing about our government, is that we are the ones with the power, not them. And the sooner that we remind them of that, the better things will get for everyone involved.